in around 1 minute. Today's episode is about some pretty difficult subjects that may offend people on many levels. If you are somebody who considers themselves woke, you may find it somewhat troubling that I will talk with some levity about serious subjects, and you may consider this show insensitive. Equally, if you have a soupçon of racism, I guarantee you that you will be very upset by this show. But don't worry, we can get through it. So everybody, be welcome, and welcome to tonight's CoronaCast comedy show. Here with me, Deliso Chaponda. So grab a drink, get ready for the show, and let's get started! Hello, and welcome to the CoronaCast comedy show. Today's show starts a little bit differently. It starts with a story. I'm going to tell a little story about something which happened to me after yesterday night's CoronaCast comedy show. So, after my show, I went on Instagram. Now, I follow 3 types of people on Instagram. The first kind I follow are friends, high school friends, university friends. That's what we all follow. The second kind is comedians. I follow lots of comedians. I'm a comedian. Makes sense. The third kind is influencers, attractive influencers, I say we could call them. Some of them influence nobody. Let's just say I follow a lot of women who post pictures of themselves barely wearing any clothes, okay? Look, don't judge me. I live alone. This is isolation. I need to look at these women, okay? So, I'm on Instagram after doing my show, and one of these attractive glamour models / influencers goes live. And I think to myself, hey, let me check out this woman's live. And I press the button. Her name is Ali, Alee, Ali, spelt very differently. Same way that rappers always feel they must misspell to show how cool they are. A lot of glamour models, I feel, misspell their name in order to get people's attention. So, I click on Ali's little live video, and I'll admit it, I was enjoying it. The live video pretty much was Ali twerking, right? And dancing in a way that caused her breasts to jiggle. And they are very large breasts, so there was very large amount of jiggling. As one may guess, most of her followers were loving this. There were a lot of hearts. There was no nudity, of course. This is an Instagram live video, but there was a lot of suggestiveness, a lot of twerking. And then amid her twerking, right? So her butt is going up and down, and her breasts are jiggling, and the fans are twiggling loves and hearts and loves and hearts. One of the people who is following just tweets, "Justice for George Floyd," right? And then she keeps on twerking, right? She keeps on twerking, and then they just start saying, "Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter." And I've got to admit, like, for a second, I was like, is this really the place? Is this really the place, right? But then right, in the moment, I'm thinking, hey, we're enjoying the titties jiggling and the buddy jiggling. I called it a buddy. I don't know what a buddy is. That's a chip buddy. But either way, I was like, is this the time to have a little bit of a political discourse? But then one of the other people who was watching her dance, right, put down in big capitals, "All lives matter." And then I was out of it. I'm no longer watching the twerking, right? The twerking's now going on in the background, and now I'm involved in the argument. And I just start arguing, why do you feel you need to say that, right? And then I start being the person in the chat of this glamour model shaking her ass, right? I'm the person there typing, saying that this is outrageous, the police, and then the person puts like hashtag not all police. And I'm like, well, who said it was? And we got into this crazy argument, and this poor lady, right, she ignored it. I don't think she wanted to engage, but it was really funny because she would say, someone would say something like, "Oh, you're so sexy," and she'd say, "Thank you, thank you." And then the next person would say, "Oh, I wish I could marry you," which I would like to say I don't think is a sincere offer. I would love one of these glamour models to just say to, at Penis Big 27, "Okay, at Penis Big 27, let's get married, let's get sorted." I believe that they are not sincere in their offer, but that is a whole aside, right? So at Penis 24 will say, "Hey, can we get married?" And she would say, "Oh, thank you, that's very flattering, thank you." And then she would see Black Lives Matter. She'll just kind of smile and then move on to the next thing and start twerking again. It was a very bizarre little political debate going on, and I was no longer, and I'll admit, I was arguing with some random idiot in the chat room of this IG Live glamour model, right? It was really funny, right? It was really funny, right? And it also got me thinking, right, that my initial thought was that this is not the place, right? This is not the place. Who am I to say that? Actually, you know what? I actually started to think, what led this person to come to the IG Live of a twerking woman and start putting out like his political outrage? Black Lives Matter. What got him in this? And I realized he must have just needed a place to vent, and maybe he feels like on Twitter and on Facebook it's only, the way that the algorithms make you only see people you agree with. So he's like, I need to talk to people, I need to talk to any random person. And maybe he realized that the way that he can talk to the multitudes is via the avenue of a sexy influencer. I don't even know if I should call her an influencer. Let's just say a sexy, big-breasted lady. And he comes in there and he starts yelling. And I also realize I can't judge him. I can't tell him that it's the wrong place for it, because I've always hated it when people come to you and say that, hey, this isn't the place for that. You get this a lot. I'm a comedian. I'll do jokes. I'll do a bunch of jokes. I'll do a joke about fingering. I'll do a joke about the snow. I'll do a joke about my parents. I'll do a joke about an ex-girlfriend. And then I'll do a joke about racism. And after the show, inevitably, some person will walk up to me and say, you know what, you're very funny, but do you have to talk about race? I mean, look, we came for a good night out, right? We don't need to hear about it here. You don't need to hear about it here, but I chose to talk about it, right? But there's a lot of things where people are like, hey, not here, right? Another, Nish Kumar, a comedian, he was doing political material last year at this dinner, and they started yelling at him, we don't want to hear about politics. They started throwing bread at him. And this is the thing where I'm like, who are you to decide what an artist can talk about, when is the right place to talk about it, right? And I almost feel like sometimes, do you know what the idea of a safe space is, right? I've always been suspect of the idea of safe spaces, right? I understand why people want them. What a safe space is. His idea is like, if you're a minority, right? Let's say you're like a black person, or maybe you're like a lesbian, or maybe you're like disabled. There are certain places which are only for those people, which is a safe space where you don't have to deal with other people who are discriminating against you. But I've always been suspect about them because, I think trigger warnings and safe spaces, right? They allow you to hide in like a comfortable existence, right? And you avoid things that challenge you. But I respect it because look, I'm not part of those groups. If you need a safe space, I fully understand. If you're a minority, you feel you're being oppressed everywhere and you need a safe space. I don't think it's the best idea, but I understand why you need it, right? I'm not going to stop you from having it. But if you are a racist who feels you need a racist safe space, fuck you. You don't want to hear about it? I don't care. I'm going to talk. I'm going to surprise you. I would love to leave a minefield of reminders of racism anytime in your day. They'll just jump out, right? You know what I mean? You'll be like having your breakfast, and out of your breakfast cereal, a little face will just come and be like, racism, remember that, right? I would love to just troll troll racists wherever they go. Just remind them, right? It's Halloween. Go to their door dressed up in a KKK uniform just to troll them. Though actually, they might just think you're a friend and give you extra cookies. But anyway, so this was what started me thinking of this stuff. This random argument I had with somebody in a glamour model's little IG live video, right? And the main argument started with the entire idea of Black Lives Matter. Now, just to be very brief before I get to the jokes, Black Lives Matter is a movement which was a call to action after the death of a 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. And the killer was not held accountable. Now, this was not the first young black person who was killed by white police in America. This is not the last young black person who has been killed. Like it was a part of a spectrum. And in fact, part of the reason that the movement started was every time there's some mass injustice towards a black person, it's really like we've got a stopwatch, right? It's not like this horrible thing's happened. We're just pressing the stopwatch until the next time, right? It's never a surprise. It should be a surprise. It's never a surprise. Now, there are some people who take extreme exception against the phrase Black Lives Matter and get very defensive in this IG live video where this lady was shaking her ass and some person jumped in and said Black Lives Matter. I will note he wrote Black Lives Matter in small letters. And this person who said, no, all lives matter, that was all in caps. This guy was triggered. He was upset, man. He was upset. I think he probably lost his erection, right? He probably had a nice erection watching the barely visible nipples of the IG live dancer, right? But no, this guy got so angry and he was like, no, all lives matter. And the thing I've always not really understood about the people who really get on the Black Lives Matter, no, all lives matter train is the first thing is, I'm like, the phrase is Black Lives Matter, right? It's not like Black Lives Matter only, right? There's no only. They in their head have added the word only over there. And it leads me to wonder, do they just add only to everything they hear, right? You know, when people came out and said, you know, if you don't want to get coronavirus, what you need to do is you need to wash your hands. Did they hear wash your hands only? And ever since, they've kept the rest of their body filthy and sweating, but they're washing their hands. They're washing their hands. They're not showering, right? Because they said, well, we have to wash our hands only, right? You don't just add only. I don't know where they got the only, but they're so angry. They feel like people, by saying Black Lives Matter, are implying that only Black Lives Matter. And I don't even understand. And I mean, there's a lot of this which happens also. Like when women talk about the men who are bastards, the men who are rapists, the men who are harassing them, there will always be people who jump in, hashtag, not all men, right? And I'm like, I never thought they were talking about me. Why do you think they were talking about you? Why, if they say harassing men, do you get defensive? You're like, not me. You're not talking about me. I don't know where you thought they were talking about you. And I actually think the perfect example of this is if you see someone saying Black Lives Matter, right? And you just feel you have to jump in and say all lives matter, right? It wasn't even part of the conversation. You know what that's like? It's like if there is a cancer fundraiser, right? So people are raising money for cancer and you just grab the mic and you say, what about AIDS, man? What about AIDS? You people raising money for cancer. What about HIV? They got that too. The cancer fundraiser, we're like, we know that, but this fundraiser is for cancer, right? I don't understand people. And I'm just going to put this out there, right? Because I know I've got fans who happen to not be white, not be black. If you are ever, running around on Twitter, running around on Facebook, and you see a little, someone posting about Black Lives Matter, or maybe Black History Month, and you find yourself thinking, what about white History Month, huh? When's White History Month? We got history too. When is our month? Why don't we get a month? Why don't we get a month? Just remember, all the other months are yours. Yeah, especially December. They've got eggnog. They've got snow. Why do you think they call it a white Christmas? It's all yours. And your lives already matter. Oh, but then now there's another thing which has happened is where people have got angry with how people are responding, right? So, just to put it into context, video goes out of a person being murdered by the police, right? They put their foot on his neck. It's a person dying under police brutality. Lot of rage, lot of people upset, don't know what to do with it. And so people start posting online their support. First person to get in trouble, Matt Healy. Okay, now Matt Healy, white person, right? White singer. And they wrote something which says, if you truly believe that all lives matter, you need to stop facilitating the end of black ones. Fabulous tweet which the person put out, right? Fabulous tweet this white man put out. I'm like, all for it. But then he also put a link to a song which he sang, which is called Love If We Made It, which is a song which is somewhat on this subject, right? He got a storm of abuse, and had to disconnect, leave Twitter, because people felt this is so insensitive, white man, that this is going on, and you feel like you need to use this as an opportunity to promote yourself. People were angry at this man, right? People were going nuts, right? People were going nuts. And I gotta say, actually, in this case, I almost feel bad for the Matt Healy guy. Because again, this horrible thing happened. He wanted to show some support. He lifted a tweet to a song which he... Now look, if you're white, I've gotta say, look, there's gotta be sometimes a lot of angry people. Sometimes you're gonna get caught in the crossfire. But don't worry, this is metaphorical crossfire. Black people are being caught in literal crossfire, right? So you have to understand, sometimes you're going to get a little bit of the rage, right? The rage is meant to be being directed at racists and towards brutal policemen. Sometimes as a random passerby white person tweeting your support, sometimes you're going to get a bit. Just be ready for it, okay? Just be like, okay, I'll take it right now. I understand. Look, you gotta understand, you look like the person who was killing the person. We don't, I know you didn't mean it, Matt Healy. I know you're just trying to help. I listened to your song. I think it's wonderful, right? I listened to his song. There's even lyrics about violence against black people. Marvelous song. You were just caught in the crossfire because people have so much rage, they don't know where to put it. So they start yelling at celebrities who don't talk about it the right way. I might get some of it too, right? Because right now I'm making jokes, right? I'm making jokes about somebody dying. I'm making jokes about Black Lives Matter. I'm telling you. Tomorrow, any of these woke people who sees this, they're going to be yelling at me. I accept it. I'm going to get a little bit of the metaphorical crossfire, right? Sometimes you will get rage, and then other times you will be ridiculed. I got to talk about this. So, David Banda, Madonna's adopted Malawian son. I've got a soft spot for this kid because he was, he's from the warm heart of Africa. He's from my homeland of Malawi. So, David Banda reads about this story, right? He's a young man, right? He's young. He's he decides to express his outrage by playing They Don't Care About Us by Michael Jackson, which is indeed a song about, white oppression of black people, right? He puts on the song and he just starts to dance, right? He's giving it his all. All I want to do is they don't really care about us. He's got his face in it. He's challenging his rage in dance. And look, A lot of people mocked him for this. A lot of people mocked Madonna for posting this because she was telling everybody, this is my son's response. She's just a proud mother saying, look at my son dance his rage. And she posted it, and it looks somewhat absurd to be responding to race with dance. But who are we to say how someone else should respond? I think part of the problem is that we are not familiar and used to the language of interpretive dance as a way of expressing rage, right? This is possibly a valid way to express rage. Like, let's say somebody cheats on you, huh? None of us like kicks away our chair and just goes, who is it? Is it a friend of mine? Is it my brother? Right? Maybe that's a valid way to express our rage, right? Maybe if somebody is starting to like bash their way into my house to rob me, maybe a valid way to express my fear is to kick the door and just say, beat it, beat it, beat it. Look, kid meant well, right? Kid meant well, and he was expressing his rage via the form of interpretive dance. It seems absurd to a lot of us, but you've also got to understand nobody knows what to do with the rage that they feel. Everybody feels, well, a lot of people, not going to say everybody, a lot of people feel that what happened was unacceptable, and we would wish it never happens again, and it always happens again. And also it reverberates, makes you think about all the little indignities which you endure. Like, I'm in the UK, right? It's not happening in the UK. Why am I angry? Because there's racism here. Now, it's not that level of racism, but there's other racism. And when one racist thing happens, it makes you think of all the daily injustices that you endure, right? And, you know, maybe dancing is the way I should just respond. I need to express my rage and just be like, it don't matter if you're black or white or something. I don't know. I'll look into it, right? But look, I don't understand why people were piling on. People were angry with Madonna. People were making fun of David Banda. It's just a young kid. It's harmless, right? What I was worried about, I actually was terrified to look at what Donald Trump tweeted about this. In fact, I was just praying. Just keep quiet. Like, we don't need to hear from you. Like, it would be lovely if he just let it all happen and kept quiet. I mean, I didn't even read what he wrote, and I was just thinking back. This is the guy who, when there was the KKK demonstration, right, said they're good people on both sides. I was like, I don't want to know what he's gonna say. Just be quiet. Just be quiet. Oh, I knocked over my microphone because I am so stressed. It was like watching a horror movie. Do you know when you're watching a horror movie and you know the monster's coming? When I log on to Twitter and I start looking for Donald Trump's account, in my head, it was like being in a horror movie because I was like, oh no, what's he going to say? What's he going to say? I didn't want to see what he had to say, but of course he spoke, right? Of course he spoke. Of course he spoke. Now, he wrote a tweet. He wrote a tweet not about the George Floyd being killed itself. He wrote a tweet about the ensuing rioting. So first there were demonstrations. Now this is the first thing I think it's important to say. 90% of the demonstrations which happened across America were peaceful, right? There are loads of photos of people marching. The nature of the internet always makes things look more chaotic because, of course, it's more news when there's violence. It's more news when there's looting. It's more news when there's something like that. But let's say 90% were just people marching, people saying this is unacceptable, never again. Then the 10%, there were a few cases where there was looting. And so in response to this, he wrote a tweet that says, those thugs, and he capitalizes thugs, are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd. Now, some people may think that this is totally acceptable thing to say. It's just the thug is only used to talk about black people. I know they're white thugs up there. If you're a white thug up in the world, you should be offended. Aren't you offended? People never use thug to talk about you. But you could be a thug too. But thug is coded language. It's coded language which is always talking about black people. I don't really care about coded language. We could let him slide on the thugs, right? So even the first sentence, I was like, okay, Trump. You're holding back on you. At least you didn't say some defense or something like that. But then he kept going, right? And the second sentence he wrote is essentially saying, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, right? He was saying if people loot, he's going to send the military to shoot them. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. But immediately I read this, I got to admit, it gave me pause because it rhymed. When the looting starts, the shooting starts. And as far as I know, Trump has never been a rhymer, right? There's no mixtape of Donald Trump which is passed around. He's not got lyrics. And I was like, is this just random that he's rhyming when the looting starts, the shooting starts? Like when he was talking about his wall, he never said that, let's stop them all. Come on, let's build a wall. No, that's not how he rolls. That's how he rolls. When he was talking, he didn't ever say, don't grab him by the tushy, grab him by the pussy. Donald Trump is not a rhymer. He's not got the gift of rhyme. So immediately I wondered, did he really come up with this phrase? So I looked into the phrase, when the looting starts, the shooting starts, and indeed, this is a phrase that was originally used by the Miami chief of police in 1967 against civil rights protesters, right? And this is such a crazy thing. It's like, why would you choose to echo the time of extreme unrest when black people were being oppressed even more and use the words of this Miami police chief who was even so condemned back then for saying when the looting starts, the shooting starts. But hey, man, it's just what Trump's doing. Now, some of you may say, oh, he's an idiot. He didn't know what he's doing. I don't buy it. Trump's a clever person. He knows what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. He wrote another word. He probably wrote black people, and then he thought about it, and he said, no, thug. Let's send the code out. And he chose something which was said at this time. He knows what he's doing. But then, gets even more interesting, because Twitter is like, we ain't having it. I can't believe Twitter did this. Twitter looked at it and said, this is promoting violence, it's glorifying violence, it's trying to escalate the situation, and they flagged it. So they flagged it and said that you can't click on it unless you choose to click on it because they feel maybe it is increasing violence. And this is not the first time this week when Twitter has been fighting Trump, right? Everybody knows Trump lies, right? Trump loves to lie. I think he doesn't even know he's doing it. He just says it. But on Twitter, sometimes he says things which aren't factually accurate. They have started flagging things which he says, which are lies, with a little exclamation point and a click to where you can fact check this. It's absolutely amazing, right? Trump versus Twitter. And I've got to tell you, this is the first time that I think somebody can beat Trump, right? I'll admit it. Whenever he's been up against a politician, I didn't believe it. I was one of the people who, when he was up against Hillary, I didn't think she had a chance, right? Because, I was like, you can't beat Trump at his own game, right? I'll tell you, the only person who I ever thought had a chance of defeating Trump, the first one was Stormy Daniels, a porn star, right? Him versus a porn star, she would win, right? Look, I don't know if it's too late, Americans, but if you really want to win the political race against Donald Trump, get rid of Biden, replace him with Stormy Daniels, because right now, she's the only person who can make Trump look like an idiot. He will make his speech and she'll just say, your penis looks like a mushroom. He's going to shut up, all right? That's what we need to do. Bring in Stormy Daniels and you'll wipe him out, right? So I thought the first one to be able to fight him was Stormy Daniels because she can out-petty him. But no, now Trump is facing off against Twitter. And I've got to tell you, this is a fair fight. Now, Trump is trying to, bring back, to repeal 230, which is going to be able to sort of Anyway, so he's fighting back against social media. But either way, I think in the fight of Trump versus Twitter, I think Twitter might win because Twitter is petty as hell. It is the most petty place that's ever been. He's a very petty man. He's a very petty politician. You can't beat him at his own game. But if there's one platform which is more insane, it's Twitter. And people of Twitter, you know what you need to do? You need to don't play fair, right? Don't wait for him to tweet and then put a little exclamation mark. Don't fact check him. Don't tell us. What you need to do is just start messing with him, right? Put in a little virus that whatever he types, something else types, right? Just mess with him, right? Change it that he can only type 12 characters. Just mess with him, people. Enjoy yourselves. Have a little bit of fun. Have whatever he posts, like a red face appears. Just mess with him. You know you can do it. I believe in you. So this has pretty much been our Corona cast for today. I haven't chatted to everybody in the chat as I usually do because it's been more serious subject matter. So I felt I should just give it a full discussion without any interruption. I'll be back with a normal Corona cast tomorrow. But the other thing I would like to sort of just say to summarize what I've been saying is I understand the rage, and there is some hope in that I've just seen as I was about to start this that the people who killed this young man have been they're going to be prosecuted for attempted manslaughter, I'm not entirely sure what it is, but it does not necessarily look like they will evade justice as previously other white policemen have in similar situations. We hope. It still depends what happens during and after the trial. But all I'm saying is there's a lot of rage, there's a lot of not understanding where to put it, right? And fighting your own is not necessarily the way to go. If someone foolishly is putting up a song, right, don't necessarily jump on them and yell at them. If someone's telling jokes, I'm not necessarily the enemy, right? I'm trying to help. Maybe I'm being insensitive, right? And if I decide to put on some Michael Jackson and give it a dance, right, I'm not necessarily the person you should be angry at. Be angry at the police. Be angry at the system. Be angry about the years of oppression. And maybe we could all do to dance a little bit more. Thank you so much. This has been Chaponda. I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Corona Cast Comedy Show. Have a good night.